But what about the environmental impact? Karen pressed, leaning across the counter. Dead grass is a clear sign of chemical contamination. Shouldn't there be soil testing requirements? Tyler looked at her like she'd asked about permits for breathing. Ma'am, it's just grass. It'll grow back. Will it? Karen pulled out her evidence folder. Because I have documentation that suggests otherwise. By the time she left the planning office empty-handed, Karen had already moved to phase 2, social media warfare. She posted in the Willowbrook Estates Facebook group, the broader Riverside County Community Watch page, and even created a new group called Citizens Against Unauthorized Pool Removal, which attracted exactly 3 members: herself, Janet Mills, and someone named bot_user_7734, who only posted cryptocurrency spam. Her Facebook post went viral within the small community. Attention UIALOVEROOK raise IDNTs. This morning I discovered evidence of unauthorized pool removal at 42 Maple Lane. The homeowner has refused to follow proper procedures and has left dead grass as evidence of his disregard for community standards. Who's next? Your property values are at stake. This is what happens when we let LESS take root in our neighborhood. Hashtag Save Willowbrook, hashtag property rights, hashtag community standards. The post generated 47 comments in 2 hours, ranging from supportive to confused to openly mocking. Karen screenshot every negative comment for what she now called her enemies list. Meanwhile, Tom Henderson was having the worst day of his life. He'd returned from a morning job interview to find 3 more violation notices taped to various parts of his property, a Facebook post calling him a community terrorist, and 17 missed calls from neighbors asking if he was okay. When Karen showed up at his door at 4 p.m. with a clipboard and her official HOA president badge, which she'd ordered from Amazon, Tom was ready for battle. Karen, this has got to stop. Mr. Henderson, I'm here in my official capacity to conduct a compliance inspection of your property modification. She pushed past him toward the backyard, clipboard at the ready. You can't just walk onto my property. Actually, Karen turned, a triumphant gleam in her eyes. Section 12.3 of the HOA agreement grants the board inspection rights for potential violations. You did read your HOA agreement before purchasing, didn't you? Tom's wife, Sarah, emerged from the kitchen. Karen, what exactly do you want from us? Karen consulted her clipboard dramatically. Full landscape restoration, a written apology to the community, attendance at sensitivity training regarding community standards, and a $500 fine for unauthorized modifications. Sensitivity training. Sarah's voice pitched upward. For removing our own pool. Your actions have traumatized this neighborhood, Sarah. Mrs. Patterson told me she couldn't sleep last night, wondering what other unauthorized changes might be happening around her. Tom stepped between Karen and his wife. Get off my property. Now. I'm conducting official HOA business. Get off my property. Karen backed toward the door, but her expression had shifted from determined to dangerously calm. Very well, Mr. Henderson. But please understand that your hostility toward legitimate community oversight has just escalated this matter considerably. As she walked back to the house, Karen was already planning her final gambit. She tried reason, she tried official channels, she tried community pressure. Now it was time for nuclear option, litigation. That evening, she called her lawyer, or rather, her cousin's husband's brother who had a law degree and helped her with HOA matters twice a year. But Brad was at his kid's soccer game and didn't answer. No matter. Karen had one more card to play, one that would either vindicate her completely or destroy everything she'd worked to build in Willowbrook Estates. She was going to call the City Code Enforcement Office and report the Hendersons for operating an illegal waste disposal operation. After all, where there had once been a pool, there was now just dead grass. In Karen's mind, that was clear evidence of environmental contamination that posed a threat to the entire neighborhood. As she dialed the number, Karen felt the familiar rush of righteous purpose. This wasn't about the pool anymore. It was about whether Willowbrook Estates would remain a community of order and standards, or descend into the chaos of people doing whatever they wanted with their own property. Karen's call to code enforcement backfired spectacularly. The inspector who arrived Thursday morning was Maria Santos, a no-nonsense woman in her 50s, who'd been dealing with frivolous complaints for 20 years. She took one look at the circular patch of dead grass, asked Tom a few basic questions about the pool removal, and pronounced the property in perfect compliance with all municipal codes. Karen Whitmore's morning jog came to an abrupt halt when she spotted the Hendersons' backyard through their slightly open gate. Where yesterday there had been a pristine above-ground pool, today there was nothing but a circular patch of dead grass and a coiled garden hose. "TEEFT," she shrieked, her voice carrying across 3 cul-de-sacs. Mrs. Patterson dropped her watering can, and 2 joggers nearly collided as they turned to stare. Karen's fluorescent pink workout gear made her impossible to miss as she stood frozen, one manicured finger pointing dramatically at the empty space. Without missing a beat, Karen whipped out her phone and dialed 911. "Yes, hello. I need to report a major theft in Willowbrook Estates. Someone has stolen an entire swimming pool." "Yes, you heard me correctly, an entire pool." The 911 operator's confusion was audible even from 10 feet away. "Ma'am, could you repeat that? Did you say someone stole a pool?" "That's exactly what I said. The Hendersons at 42 Maple Lane had a beautiful blue pool yesterday, and now it's gone. This is clearly the work of organized criminals. We need CSI, fingerprint analysis, the whole 9 yards." As Karen paced in tight circles, her voice rose to operatic levels. She'd been HOA president for 3 years, and nothing, absolutely nothing, happened in Willowbrook Estates without her knowledge. This was either a crime of the century or a direct assault on her authority. 20 minutes later, 2 patrol officers arrived, looking like they'd drawn the short straw for weird calls that day. Officer Martinez, a patient man in his 40s, approached Karen with the weary expression of someone who dealt with HOA complaints before. "Ma'am, you reported a stolen pool." "Finally." "Yes, officer. The criminal struck sometime between yesterday evening and this morning. I do my constitutional around the neighborhood every day at precisely 7 a.m., and I can assure you that pool was there yesterday." Officer Martinez exchanged a glance with his partner, Officer Chen, who was unsuccessfully trying to suppress a smile. "Ma'am, we'll need to speak with the homeowners first. Are the Hendersons home?" Karen's eyes narrowed. "That's exactly what I was thinking. They're probably in on it. Insurance fraud, most likely. Nobody just uses a pool overnight." The officers approached the Henderson house, with Karen trailing behind like a determined bloodhound in designer athleisure. When Tom Henderson answered the door, still in his pajamas with a coffee mug in hand, his confused expression only fueled Karen's suspicions. "Morning, Tom," Officer Martinez said. "We received a report about a missing pool." Tom blinked slowly, then started laughing. "Oh, that? Yeah. I drained it last night and took it apart this morning. The liner had a huge tear, and I'm getting rid of it before the HOA starts complaining about standing water breeding mosquitoes." Karen's mouth fell open. You drained it, without filing the proper paperwork." "Paperwork? Karen, it's my pool. Was my pool. Was your pool." Karen's voice hit a pitch that made nearby dogs howl. "Nothing in this neighborhood belongs to just one person. We have community standards, property values to maintain, aesthetic guidelines." Officer Chen cleared his throat. "So, no crime has been committed?" "No crime?" Karen whirled around, her ponytail whipping dramatically. "He's destroyed neighborhood property without authorization. He's violated at least 17 HOA regulations. This is vandalism at minimum." Tom Henderson's good-natured confusion was rapidly morphing into irritation. "Karen, you can't seriously be suggesting I need permission to remove my own pool from my own backyard. Your backyard is part of our community, Tom Henderson, and I'm going to make sure you understand exactly what that means." By noon, Karen had transformed her dining room into a command center that would make military strategists proud. Her laptop displayed 3 different tabs: the County Property Code database, the Willowbrook Estates HOA bylaws, and a Google search for legal consequences of unauthorized pool removal. Her printer had been working overtime, producing stack after stack of regulations, precedents, and violation notices. "This is it, Gerald," she announced to her husband, who was trying to eat lunch while his wife paced around him like a caged tiger. "This is my Gettysburg, my Waterloo, my moment to show this community what real leadership looks like." Gerald, a mild-mannered accountant who'd learned to survive Karen's crusades by staying neutral, mumbled something about property rights through his sandwich. "Property rights?" Karen stopped pacing. "Gerald, we don't live in some lawless frontier town. We live in a CONMUNIT with realities. If Tom Henderson can just drain his pool without consequences, what's next? Purple houses? Garden gnomes? Unleashed pets?" Karen watched the news segment from her living room, her coffee mug frozen halfway to her lips as the full scope of her tactical error became clear. In her zealous pursuit of Tom Henderson, she'd committed every violation she'd accused him of, plus several he'd never even approached. By Friday morning, the HOA board had called another emergency meeting. This time, Karen wasn't running it. "Karen," said Mike Rodriguez, who'd apparently grown a spine overnight, "we need to discuss your conduct this week." The 5 board members sat around Linda Walsh's dining room table. Linda had volunteered her house, specifically so Karen couldn't control the seating arrangements. Karen found herself in the defendant's chair, facing a stack of printed emails, screenshots, and news articles. "The board has received 17 formal complaints about your actions this week," Mike continued. "Harassment, trespassing, misuse of HOA resources, violation of multiple community standards." "I was protecting our community," Karen interrupted. "You were protecting your ego," said Bob Chen, finally looking up from his phone. "And in the process, you've made us all look like lunatics on the evening news." Janet Mills, Karen's former ally, delivered the final blow. "Karen, I've known you for 8 years. This isn't about community standards. This is about you needing to control everything and everyone around you. And it's gotten out of hand." The vote was unanimous. Karen Whitmore was removed as HOA president, effective immediately. She would face the same fines and penalties as any other homeowner who violated community standards. Her sign had to come down within 24 hours. But as Karen sat in her car outside Linda's house, staring at her reflection in the rearview mirror, she felt something unexpected: relief. For the first time in years, someone else was responsible for maintaining order in Willowbrook Estates. That relief lasted exactly 37 minutes, until she noticed that Tom Henderson had installed a new mailbox without filing the proper architectural review paperwork. As she reached for her phone to document the violation, Karen paused. The new mailbox was actually quite attractive: brushed steel with clean lines that complemented the Hendersons' house perfectly. It probably increased their property values. She put her phone down and drove home, where Gerald was waiting with divorce papers and a concerned expression. "Karen," he said gently, "we need to talk." But that, Karen realized, was a story for another day. Outside her window, Willowbrook Estates continued its quiet suburban existence, blissfully unaware that its former guardian was facing the greatest challenge of all: learning to mind her own business. The mailbox violation report could wait until tomorrow. Maybe. She grabbed her phone and began rapid-fire texting the other HOA board members. Within minutes, her phone was buzzing with responses ranging from confused to concerned to, in the case of board member Janet Mills, downright conspiratorial. "Janet thinks the Hendersons might be planning to put in a hot tub," Karen announced, reading from her phone. "At HOTUB, Gerald. Do you know what hot tubs attract? Parties, loud music, teenagers." Gerald made the mistake of suggesting that hot tubs might actually increase property values. "Whose side are you on?" Karen's eyes flashed dangerously. "Are you going soft on me too? Because I'm telling you right now, I will not let this neighborhood descend into chaos on my watch." By 2 p.m., Karen had printed and hand-delivered violation notices to the Henderson house. Tom wasn't home, but she taped them to his front door, mailbox, and garage with the precision of someone posting the 95 thesis. Each notice cited different violations: unauthorized landscape modification, failure to submit alteration request form 47B, and her personal favorite, willful degradation of community aesthetic standards. At 3 p.m., she called an emergency AOA board meeting. The 5 board members gathered in Karen's living room with varying degrees of enthusiasm. Janet Mills, Karen's most reliable ally, arrived armed with her own folder of printed regulations. Board Treasurer Mike Rodriguez looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Secretary Linda Walsh brought wine, clearly anticipating a long evening. Vice President Bob Chen, no relation to the police officer, spent most of the meeting playing solitaire on his phone. Fellow board members, Karen began, standing before her makeshift presentation board. We are facing an unprecedented crisis. Today's pool incident isn't just about one neighbor's disregard for protocol. It's about the very foundation of our community standards. She'd unveiled her first chart. Property value impact analysis of unauthorized pool removal, complete with color-coded graphs that she'd spent 2 hours creating. As you can see, Karen continued, clicking her laser pointer at random spots on the chart. Unauthorized modifications create a domino effect of declining standards. Today, it's pool removal without permits. Tomorrow, it could be fence painting without color approval. Where does it end? Mike Rodriguez raised his hand tentatively. Karen, did Tom actually violate any specific rules? I mean, removing your own pool seems pretty straightforward. The room went silent. Karen's laser pointer froze midair. Mike, Karen said slowly, are you suggesting that homeowners in our community should be able to make major landscape modifications without oversight? I'm just saying maybe we should pick our battles. Our BT tails. Karen's voice rose to window-rattling levels. This isn't a battle, Mike. This is war. Tom Henderson has thrown down the gauntlet, and if we don't respond with overwhelming force, we'll lose all credibility as a governing body. Linda Walsh, emboldened by wine, chimed in. Honestly, Karen, most people would be happy to see that pool gone. It was kind of an eyesore. The betrayal cut deep. Karen stared at Linda as if she'd just declared allegiance to anarchy itself. Fine, Karen said quietly, a dangerous calm settling over her features. I can see I'm the only one here who truly understands what's at stake. But let me be crystal clear. I will not let Tom Henderson make a mockery of everything we've built here. With or without your support, I'm going to make sure he faces the full consequences of his actions. As the board members filed out, muttering among themselves, Karen was already planning her next move. If they wouldn't stand with her, she'd wage this war alone. After all, she'd never needed anyone else to maintain order in Willowbrook Estates before. Karen's investigation began at dawn. Armed with a measuring tape, digital camera, and a spiral notebook she'd designated as evidence log, Henderson Pool Violation Case Number 1, she conducted what she privately called reconnaissance, and what her neighbors called creepy stalking behavior. She discovered that Tom had indeed removed every trace of the pool, but he'd made one critical error. The circular patch of dead grass remained. In Karen's mind, this was smoking gun evidence of willful property degradation and failure to restore landscape to original condition. Gotcha, she whispered, photographing the dead grass from 17 different angles. Her next stop was the county planning office, where she spent 4 hours researching permit requirements for pool installations and removals. The board clerk, a young man named Tyler who clearly drew the short straw for dealing with walk-ins, tried to explain that above-ground pools typically didn't require removal permits.